Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here once again for our third and final launch broadcast of the day. We're broadcasting as we always do from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Right now, SpaceX is counting down to its second launch of the day, this time with its Transporter-14 mission on tap, getting ready to launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base and its Pad 4 East. On board, 70 payloads from multiple dozens of customers around the world. Many here in the United States, but countries such as Australia, Japan, Germany, and many, many others. This is SpaceX's fourth rideshare mission of the year so far, after the launches of Transporter-12, 13, as well as Bandwagon-3. Liftoff currently targeting the time that you see there on your screen, 2:25 p.m. Pacific, 5:25 p.m. Eastern, 21:25 UTC for those joining around the world. Certainly appreciate the little more than 1,200 of you who are watching with us live at this point in the countdown. If you haven't already, be sure to click that like button, share the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we roll on through the countdown today. Want to thank our moderators in the live chat for being with us once again to help support this live coverage. Thanks to Rick Donner, Callistia Lee, and just scrolling to see if there are any other mods here at the moment. Not seeing any, but if you do see any of the other mods join us throughout the course of the countdown, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. And thanks again to Cumulus Granatus for being back with us one last time today, helping to answer folks' questions in the live chat. Today's Falcon flight will be SpaceX's 494th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 77th of the year so far. Comes after this successful deployment of 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites from here on Florida's Space Coast earlier today, and wishing all the best to the various customers that are aiming to send their various payloads and spacecraft on their way to orbit, coming up here in just about 25 minutes and 25 seconds. Got a whole cadre of things that are on board this Falcon 9 flight today, from CubeSats and nanosats to re-entry vehicles, and one that is seeking to prove out some of the technology on the path to creating a future cargo transport vehicle that will be able to bring cargo and supplies to space stations like the ISS and future commercial stations beyond the life of the International Space Station. We'll talk more about the exploration company and that payload a little bit later in the broadcast. Of course, we've had good weather here on the Space Coast for the launch opportunities today, but what are things like out at Vandenberg, you may be asking? Take a look now at the picture here from the GOES West satellite. You can see some offshore clouds hanging around the area. A little bit of fog in the vicinity of Vandenberg. We'll have to wait and see exactly what conditions are like once we get pad level views of the rocket today. Inland conditions looking much better, so hopefully folks will have a somewhat decent view of the Falcon 9 rocket once it does take flight from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Coming up here in just about 23 and a half minutes. Taking a brief spin through the countdown timeline here for today's flight of the Falcon 9 rocket. Passed through a number of milestones, but just to get you caught up and a look ahead at what is still left on the docket for this rocket. Didn't mean to rhyme, but that's just how it turns out sometimes. I can't seem to stop. All right, T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director gave the go-ahead for the start of prop load. Fueling began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30 minutes is when cryogenic helium load began. Same was true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. And that sets the stage for the next milestone coming up in the countdown today is the strong back chill down process. That's when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. That venting process as part of the thermal conditioning will last until about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds, setting the stage for second stage liquid oxygen load to begin at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along at T-minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps. That helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. It's when the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, reclines about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg, and it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final minute of the countdown, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Coming up in just about 20 minutes from now at 2:25 p.m. Pacific, 5:25 p.m. Eastern, 21:25 UTC for those joining around the world. Just a hair under 19 minutes to go before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Today's Falcon flight Does shift things around just a little bit on the frequent flyers list of Falcon first stage boosters. Booster that is flying today is tail number B1071, getting ready to tie with B1063 with a total of 26 trips to space and back. Earlier today, we saw the 25th flight of B1069, which launched the Starlink 10-23 mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Still got that three-way tie for the fifth spot here on the list between boosters 1067, 76, 77, and 78. Here's a bar chart representation of the Falcon family of launches year over year. Currently standing at 76 missions for SpaceX in 2025. And of course, this will be mission number 77. As we're approaching the end of the big vent, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about where this Falcon 9 rocket is going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? Falcon 9 is going to be lifting off, of course, from Space Launch Complex 4 East, SpaceX's current only pad on the West Coast right now. It'll fly in a southwesterly direction once it heads off from Vandenberg Space Force Base with the first stage booster, B1071, targeting a touchdown on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. If successful, this will be the 138th booster landing for that particular vessel and the 466th booster landing to date. SpaceX is working to certify its first stage boosters as well as its payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Once the fairing halves re-enter the atmosphere, they conclude their splashdown under the support of steerable parachutes into the waters of the Pacific Ocean. They'll then be brought aboard one of the recovery vessels from SpaceX, brought back into port, and turned around for future missions. Taking a glimpse underneath the hood here, here's an image of the stack of payloads that's getting ready to head into low Earth orbit. Again, there are 70 payloads that are manifested on this Falcon 9 stack today. The majority of them were manifested by German company Exolaunch, which also has offices here in the United States. If you'd like to read more about their involvement with this mission, we've got a nice little write-up as part of our preview coverage for this Transporter-14 mission. That's over on our website right now at spacelightnow.com. Some of the standouts here include a re-entry vehicle. If you look on the left-hand side of this payload stack, you see sort of a cylindrical spacecraft that's jutting out from the left with sort of a grayish dome. That is the fourth of the Winnebago series spacecraft reentry vehicle manifested by Varda Space Industries, which was just recently awarded a Part 450 reentry license working with the Federal Aviation Administration that allows them to not have to go back to the FAA every single time for bespoke access to reentry capabilities. It's more time intensive up front, but it's a process that the FAA has been trying to encourage those in the aerospace industry to work with them on in order to allow for a more robust understanding of these mission profiles and allow companies to build up a cadence with less continuous go between from the company to the FAA and then back again to clear each and every mission. Another spacecraft that is on board is a payload from NASA, described by the space agency as a lunar calibration technology demonstration called Arkstone. This is being launched as part of NASA's CubeSat launch initiative. It's designed to use sunlight reflected off the moon to, quote, fine-tune spacecraft instruments that study Earth and other celestial bodies. This is a 6U or 6-unit CubeSat, which is about the size of a shoebox. We also know that the Space Development Agency has a payload on board this mission. Part of a future tranche of satellites. It's got the abbreviation of T1DES, which stands for Tranche 1 Demonstration and Experimentation System Program satellites, which were developed by York Space Systems. One more for you before we see views of the Falcon 9 rocket. It should be coming up here momentarily. Taking a look at an artist's rendering of the Otter Pup 2 spacecraft, the follow-up to Otter Pup 1, which was launched on the Transporter-8 mission back in June of 2023. This is designed to do another approach proximity operation with the company D-Orbit and their Ion satellite, which is the satellite on the right-hand side. Otter Pup is the one on the left. It's going to be doing proximity and docking demonstrations with that mission, or with that Ion satellite. And last for now, look at the Mission Possible reentry capsule. This is from the Exploration Company. This is helping to prove out some of the technology that will allow them to develop a cargo transportation spacecraft that, again, will allow them to bring cargo to and from space stations like the ISS. And we've got views now of the Falcon 9 rocket. You can see on the Falcon 9's second stage in between those vapor clouds there. That gray band, which is a special type of paint that is used to keep the RP-1 on the second stage at a consistent temperature. It's used during especially long coast phases and long duration missions where they want to make sure that whether the upper stage is in a prolonged period in the Earth's shadow or in a prolonged period of sunlight, that the RP-1 remains at a reliable temperature for those burns. There are going to be 5 burns of the upper stage engine, the Merlin vacuum engine, over the course of this nearly 3-hour long mission today. SpaceX commentators note that weather is good to support this mission. Right now, you're taking a look at a promotional video from the exploration company about their Mission Possible satellite. Again, the exploration company working to create that cargo spacecraft designed to travel to and from space stations, both the ISS and commercial ones. At the Paris Air Show, according to reporting from Jeff Faust at Space News, they are also developing a crewed variant of what they're calling the Nix spacecraft, NYX. Got just a brief glimpse of the animation of that Nix capsule. You see it there floating towards the space station. Again, this is the cargo variant of the Nix capsule. The exploration company also wants to develop a lunar variant of Nix called Nix Moon. The Mission Possible spacecraft is at the very top of the Falcon 9 stack today, and it will be the last to be deployed on today's mission. Deployment of Mission Possible is coming up at T plus 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 53 seconds. Stage 1 RP-1 loading has wrapped up. Just heard that call out. Taking a spin around the Falcon 9 rocket. Payload fairings stand at 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Just beneath the fairings is the second stage, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine. Quick note about the payload fairings going back up to that. One is flying for a 20th time, another for a 7th time, according to SpaceX commentator today, Jesse Anderson. Merlin vacuum engine, going back to the second stage, produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. And it will be fired 5 times today over the course of today's process of deploying the payloads. It burns same propellant mix as the first stage, that is liquid oxygen and RP-1 rocket-grade kerosene. For the call for pressurization for strong back retract. Soon the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Just beneath the second stage is the inner stage, a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. It has deployable hypersonic grid fins, which are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering as the booster comes back through the atmosphere and targets a touchdown of the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. And the booster, the first stage, is flying for a 26th time today, B-1071 in the SpaceX fleet. Like with the second stage, it also burns LOX and RP-1 and produces 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. It has black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the booster on the drone ship. And there are some live views now of the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You underneath some cloudy conditions out there in the Pacific Ocean. But as SpaceX noted, weather is green, and so there should be an on-time departure coming up here in now just a little under 3.5 minutes. Or the call for stage 1 LOX load being complete. Stage 1 LOX load should wrap up, or excuse me, stage 2 LOX load should wrap up coming up here at T-minus 2 minutes. Again, if you recall, the payload stack at the top of the rocket inside those payload fairings, Berlin-based Exolaunch is responsible for manifesting 45 out of 70 of those payloads on board. Those come from 25 customers around the globe. Two minutes and counting.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Surely we'll see, there you go, the start of the ground gas closeouts.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Good.
And with that call, we are now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their call that they are go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that good go for launch call, we're going to step back on our commentary and listen along with you to the final 30 seconds of the count, and we'll be back with you with additional words on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Transporter-14.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M&D chamber pressure is nominal.
We are T plus 40 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 has successfully cleared the tower and cleared the fog. We've got a
Power
great view
and telemetry
there.
nominal.
After lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We are now currently throttling down to prepare for max Q. That's the point of maximum aerodynamic stresses on the vehicle. Max Q is reached when the air density of the atmosphere decreases faster than the increasing speed of the rocket. We're coming up on max Q here in a few seconds.
Max Q.
And there we've passed through max Q.
Coming up next, we'll have several events happening in quick succession, starting with MECO, followed by stage separation, SES-1, and then the boost back burn. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is where the first stage separates from the second stage.
Started.
Then the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as Second Engine Start 1, or SES-1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and the payload to orbit. The boost back burn will then assist the first stage in returning to its recovery location on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. Then the fairing will jettison from the second stage, as it's no longer needed to protect the payloads once we are in space. Later, those fairing halves will separate about 30 seconds after SES-1, so keep an eye out for all of those events coming up shortly.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. Evacuation.
And there we've had MECO stage separation. On your right-hand screen, you can see the MVAC engine igniting. On your left-hand screen, you can see the grid fins deploying on the first stage, which will soon make its way back down to Earth for a landing on Of Course I Still Love You.
Been a good mission for SpaceX so far, looking for fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a really nice view of several of the payloads that are going to be deployed over the course of this mission today. Coming up in less than 3 minutes will be the start of the entry burn, which will use 3 out of the 9 engines on the Falcon 9 first stage booster to dramatically slow the vehicle down as it makes its way towards the drone ship. Of Course I Still Love You. SpaceX reports that both the booster and the upper stage are following nominal trajectories. And it looks like the booster is going to be topping out at about 120 kilometers in altitude. Oh, 121. Stand corrected. Start of the entry burn is coming up at about T plus 6 minutes and 14 seconds. So a little less than 2 minutes from now. Those occasional puffs that you're seeing in between the hypersonic grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters, which help to adjust the vehicle's attitude or positioning as it prepares to make its way towards the drone ship. Now a little less than a minute away from the start of the entry burn. Looking up through the inner stage on the left-hand side of your screen, continuing to get what appear to be views of a nominal burn on the upper stage engine as well, toggling between two different onboard camera views. Just about 10 seconds away from the start of entry burn.
Burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
There's that call out.
This entry burn will last a little less than 30 seconds in total.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With a wrap up of the entry burn, we're now looking towards the start of the landing burn. Things are going to be a little bit different order than with a typical Starlink mission, whereas we would see on a Starlink flight usually the landing burn, the landing, and then SECO 1 or second stage engine cutoff. This go around, we're going to see the start of the landing burn, then SECO 1, and then the touchdown of the booster on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. All that's set to begin right about the 8-minute mark. Whole thing will take roughly 30 seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
And there you just heard that call out for the landing burn start on the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute before touching down.
Stage 1 landing leg deployed. SECO. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Nominal parking orbit.
And there you just watched as Falcon 9 touched down on Of Course I Still Love You, marking the 26th landing of this booster. We also had SECO 1, which is second stage engine cutoff.
And all those good events that you just saw and some spectacular reviews of the payloads that are getting ready to continue on a coast phase before they really get underway with the start of the deployment sequence. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, this will be a fairly long process with, after the coast phase, the upper stage engine will have another burn at T plus 51 minutes and 3 seconds. There'll be a 4-second burn, and then deployment begins with the quick cubed satellite manifested by Exolaunch. At this point, we're going to start to wind down our live commentary coverage here on the channel, but we're not going to walk away from this mission. We'll be shifting this over to Launchpad Live since we do have quite a bit on our plate coming up here. Taking a look over at Launch Complex 39A, the delayed but now back on the table, apparently, mission of AX4 is getting ready to launch early Wednesday morning, and so we'll have multi-hour live coverage of that. The video you're seeing here is a celebration of SpaceX and its 500 missions with its Falcon family of rockets, starting with Falcon 1, going through Falcon 9, and of course, including Falcon Heavy in the mix. As I was starting to say, though, with the upcoming launch of AX4 in the early morning hours of Wednesday, we'll have about 4 hours of pre-launch coverage beginning Tuesday night. And so we have quite a bit to prepare for. And following two very early overnight launches here, we're going to go ahead and give our team a bit of a rest in order to be fresh and ready to give you robust and reliable coverage of that upcoming crew mission, getting ready to lift off from LC-39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. But if you'd like to follow the deployment of the 70 payloads on board the Transporter-14 mission, we'll have that live for you on our 24-hour live stream. That is Launchpad Live right here on the YouTube channel. So no need to go very far. We'll route you over there as soon as we wrap up this stream right now. Do want to welcome in a few folks, thank them for their support with our coverage for this mission. Want to welcome in new channel members Bill M., Michael Alexander, and Denisha Lee Davis joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Thomas AFB with a £2 super chat asking about the reddish capsule at the top of the stack. That is the Mission Possible capsule. Again, this is a precursor mission as the company called the Exploration Company works to develop a cargo spacecraft that will be able to ferry about 4,000 kilograms of cargo up to the space station and bring back about 3,000 kilograms. This capsule is going to help prove out some of the technology needed in order to make that a reality. You can read more about that on our website, spaceflightnow.com, and the article that we wrote leading up to this mission. I want to thank Callistia Lee, one of our moderators, for a very generous $20 super chat, saying donating to the Will Robinson Smith Tea and Halls Fund. It's been a super busy day. Thanks for all you do, Will. Thank you, Callistia. And thanks for your support to the aforementioned Tea and Halls Fund. It's definitely going to be needed after a day like today, but more than happy to do it. Michael Sadal with a 15 Australian dollar super chat. And good luck to Robinson Aerospace. And no, I did not start an aerospace company on the side, but best of luck to Robinson Aerospace and all of the other folks that are flying payloads today. I'm Lita with a $5 super chat, one of our channel members, saying thanks to Spaceflight Now, Will, team, and mods for all you do for us. Take care. Daniel H. gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Thank you, Daniel. Michelle Penland with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Michelle. Good to see you today. Chuck Close with a $25 super chat. Thank you so much, Chuck. Really appreciate the support at that level. And Jeffrey with a $5 super chat and an emoji simply saying, wow. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look at our mission stats as they currently stand before we go ahead and sign off with our launch commentary part of the coverage before we turn you over to the rest of the mission over on Launchpad Live. With a good liftoff and landing of this Falcon 9 rocket, This was the 26th flight of Falcon booster B-1071, the 494th Falcon 9 launch to date for SpaceX. This was the 77th Falcon 9 flight of 2025, the 148th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This was the company's 133rd orbital flight from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 201st overall orbital launch from this pad as well. So look at the bar chart representation of the Falcon family of rockets. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 138th landing of a booster on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You successfully. The 377th drone ship landing and the 466th Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats. Today's flight was the 26th orbital launch from California, the 82nd from U.S. soil, the 90th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 137th orbital launch from around the world. There have been 3 orbital mishaps so far on the year, and here's where our pie chart now currently stands. Again, we'll pop you over to Launchpad Live for those who want to continue following the deployment of all these payloads that are flying today. Give our last words to James Drake with a £2 super chat saying thanks to Dave for Big Space. And Spirit of the Horse with a $2 super chat saying woohoo, go Autopup 2 from Starfish Space. I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Broad thank you to our photography team who are all getting much needed rest after a very long night and are getting prepared for a long day tomorrow in preparation for, again, the launch of the AX-4 mission from Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. We'll have live coverage beginning at L-4 hours ahead of this flight, so be sure to click that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and that way you won't get left in the lurch when we start our live launch coverage tomorrow evening. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson-Smith. Big thank you to our mods, and remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.